Well, first of all, it's so great to have you guys on set because you're calming us down. Because Jarek and I are very anxious about what's about to go down tonight. I'm not so anxious about the forecast itself. It looks pretty good. We got this big event, so let's go to the big wall here and talk about it. You know, it's not your typical San Diego weather for April, which would mean crystal blue skies, high pressure control. We actually have a late season storm that's hitting Northern California right now, even bringing some tornado warnings to the Bay Area. Luckily, the troughiness and the cold front is far enough back to where it shouldn't interfere. But you can see we do have some clouds at the lower levels and at the upper levels. That might limit some of the visibility. But what we saw there from the boat or from the ship, it looks pretty good. Can you believe this thing starts its entry at 2,000 miles away, out near Hawaii, and then slows down from 24,000 miles an hour down to a landing here just about 50 miles. The way they calculate this is amazing to me as well. All right, so water temperature, 65 degrees, about the air temperature as well. Winds 7 miles an hour, that's important. Waves now up to 5 feet, all right? So some of the criteria with this is that you can't have waves greater than 6 feet. So that's, and that's more so for the safety of the crew and the rescue crews trying to get the guys out of the capsule there. So that's still what we think is going to be happening here. We do have a little bit of cloud cover, mostly east towards the landfall there, but weather does look to be okay. Certainly could be worse. They can't have any rainfall, right? Because I would imagine the rainfall would knock down the parachutes.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be good. That doesn't seem to be an issue. But I'm very nervous about the re-entry before the chutes open.
Yeah, I have to say, even just
no,
flying.
Thank you. Thank you.
I know
Don't worry.
But even just flying in a plane, sometimes you worry about turbulence and all of that. To hear 24,000 miles an hour coming in, back to Earth, it's like, how is that possible? It's really amazing. As we wait, though, for the crew to return to Earth, let's take a look back at some of the sights and sounds of this historic mission around the moon.
We are going for all humanity. Your Artemis 2 crew is go for launch.
3, 2, 1. Booster ignition. And liftoff. The crew of Artemis 2 now bound for the moon.
Core stage separated.
We have good separation, good motion.
Your Integrity crew is go for TLI. With this burn to the moon, we do not leave Earth. We choose it.
Integrity looks like a good burn. We're confirming.
We surpassed the furthest distance humans have ever traveled from planet Earth. And our crew would like to propose a couple of potential names for those items or those areas. We lost a loved one. Her name was Carol. And we would like to call it Carol.
Integrity and Carol Crater, loud and clear.
As we prepare to go out of radio communication, we're still to feel your love from Earth.
Houston, we have you the same, and it is so great to hear from Earth again.
This is continues to be unreal. The sun has gone behind the moon.
You are special. In all of this emptiness, this is a whole bunch of nothing, this thing we call the universe. You have this oasis, this beautiful place that we get to exist together.
The four of us having been there just now, this is nothing short of a miracle.
And back here with us, former NASA astronaut Sunny Williams. It doesn't get old. I see you tearing up as we were watching.
No, it never gets old. It's really, really cool because you know that these are your friends that are on board. So, no, I'm not nervous. I'm just really excited and really happy for them. I know that this, like we mentioned before, this is a huge team effort over, a decade working on trying to make sure that, everything, all the T's are crossed, all the I's are dotted. They changed the entry profile just to make sure, because of the heat shield issues on the previous flight, to make sure that they're going to get back. So, yes, emotional, but in a really happy way.
I mean, you must feel like part of your soul is with them on this.
Oh, absolutely. I know all those guys very, very well.
Yeah.
Got to be actually on the selection board for a couple of those astronauts, the Americans, and of course I've known Jeremy for a long time as well. So I've known them as baby astronauts and seen them grow up, and hopefully we gave them some good lessons along the way.
If you look at your screen right now on the far left side, well, actually the full screen, you can see the images of the astronauts there. And we just heard from NASA that they said everything is in excellent shape. So thumbs up there as we continue to see and watch what is happening. And and watch the people. I mean, you can see folks outside smiling and just so excited. And Rob, I know you got a chance to be in the midst of that, talking to the young people. I think you got a little choked up at one point.
You can't help it. It's a different vibe now. You know, we went from the launch where, you know, people were gathered around the launch pad itself or in view of the launch pad, or even launch parties around the country, right? Watching this thing go up. And it was a very communal event, you know, and once it went up, it was joyful, and you were just in awe of the whole spectacle and cheering them on and sending sending your kids off to school or something. You know, hope to see you on the way back, right? But now it's a different vibe. Now, I mean, it's great to be with everybody here, but we're kind of now witnessing it, you know, a little bit more secluded, right? Maybe in our living rooms at home, watching on TV. Probably the biggest groups are at Mission Control and on that ship right now. So it's definitely a different vibe, and one that's hopefully we'll be celebrating here in just a few minutes.
I want to turn back to Nick Hague there in Washington. What part of the mission stood out to you, Nick?
Well, when I was glued to the feed when they were doing the lunar flyby, just, you know, knowing them so well and being able to watch them on the stream from the capsule and see their body language and the excitement, I was riveted. So that 6 hours, couldn't stop watching. And then to see some of the first images that they were able to transmit down in high definition of the moon with the Earth in the background, it's just so captivating. It's so exciting. It says, you know, this is the beginning, and that's what this is. This is, you know, a test mission that is paving the way for follow-on missions so that we can get to the moon and establish a base on it and continue to explore.
You see some of those pictures beside you right now of the moon, the pictures that we had not seen before, those craters, and I think so much of what this exploration represents is the future. I want to turn to senior national correspondent Mark Strassman. He's at NASA's Johnson Space Center. Mark, if you could touch on the developments, the exploration, the advancement in technology, and where ultimately this gets us closer to.
Well, remember, this is the first lunar mission in more than a half century. It's the dawn of really a new lunar era for NASA of human exploration. Haven't been there since 1972 in Apollo 17, and this is the next step to an eventual moon landing, which would come with the Artemis 4, which NASA has scheduled for early in 2028. I'm just also struck by how far this crew has come. I mean, physically, that is, remember just 4 days ago, they were another 250,000 miles in deep space, further than any human being has ever gone before. But then just as people, I mean, we were all touched and moved and stirred by some of the images that they sent back to us of the solar eclipse and the far side of the moon and Earthsat. And you could tell how touched they were, too, that even though 3 of the 4 of them were experienced astronauts, had been into low Earth orbit with the International Space Station, this was just a different experience and a different perspective that they shared with us through their pictures. And it was sort of remarkable to experience vicariously through their eyes and through their interpretation of events. And it really, I think, opened the eyes for a lot of people looking on. Remember, Jerika, that 3 of every 4 people on planet Earth alive today were born after Apollo 17. So this is their first time witnessing any person come anywhere near the moon. And this will be something that they will always remember. And can you imagine what it's going to be like when we have a moon landing? I mean, you think the excitement here was huge. I mean, that one will be through the roof.
Yeah, and we're watching the live pictures right now from Artemis as they're getting closer and closer to Earth. I want to go back to CBS News contributor, space contributor Bill Harwood. There are ambitious goals, absolutely, for the Artemis program going forward. What are they, and how likely are we to see some of those goals, you know, that meet what they want in terms of getting to Mars, or, you know, companies being able to do things that they're not doing now? How close are we to that next phase?
Well, it's interesting, you know, Jerika, the Artemis moon program right now, the plan calls for a flight next year to test docking and rendezvous procedures with moon landers in Earth orbit. Those landers are being built by SpaceX and Blue Origin. If they get that worked out in 2028, NASA wants to land one mission, if not two missions on the moon, put boots on the moon near the moon's south pole, and that's going to lead to what NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman says will be 2 moon landings a year as the agency begins building a lunar base near the South Pole. But I got to tell you, you know, that's assuming successive administrations, successive Congresses provide the funding for all that. Isaacman is optimistic, but you know, a lot of Americans look at the moon as we've been there, we've done that. We won the original space race back in the 70s or 60s and 70s, and might not see the value in spending that kind of money to build moon bases and that stuff. But the agency wants to do that. They view the moon as a stepping stone to Mars, and so that's the logical next step.
All right. Again, we're looking at the live picture, and we just see it getting closer and closer very quickly, about 20 minutes away, potentially from Splashdown. Joining us now is Jana Levin, a CBS News contributor and professor of physics and astronomy at Barnard College. Professor, what do you think the impact of this mission will ultimately be?
Well, we're back in our journey exploring both the solar system, but also, in some sense, more of Earth. It's thought that the moon is actually part of the Earth, that there was this cataclysmic collision 4.5 billion years ago when the Earth was forming, and that material, some of it fell back to Earth, but a big chunk of it became our moon. So in some sense, I think we're really expanding our horizon of what we think of as home.
We have crossed the threshold now.
And again, looking at those live pictures, getting closer and closer, Jana, the Artemis 2 crew, they are now roughly 400,000 feet above Earth and about to make their first contact with the upper atmosphere. During this time period, they will enter a radio blackout for 6 minutes due to the plasma formation around the Orion capsule upon hitting the atmosphere. Let's take some time to listen in to Mission Control.
And as predicted, we've entered our communications blackout. This will be a 6-minute blackout period. No voice, no data from the crew. We're 30 seconds away from the anticipated point of peak heating on the vehicle, where temperatures will rise to about 4,000 to 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit. This is the true test of our trajectory. And from the G5 aircraft in the vicinity of the splashdown zone, this view of integrity. So that pinpoint of light shows the vehicle as it enters the period of peak heating in the Earth's atmosphere, the first tug of gravity being felt by Integrity's astronauts since their launch back on April 1st. Four and a half minutes until the end of the blackout period. Time to splash down, 11 minutes, 33 seconds.
That little dot was.
You are looking at what appears to be a ball of fire moving at a pace that it is not normal. This is a visualization, excuse me.
The landing and support officer
but this is essentially what is happening. Sunny, your reaction?
An exciting time. Obviously, you know, we can't talk to the ground because during these time frames when we're coming in, because of this ball of fire that's all around us.
Yes.
And the windows, they'll be able to see, you know, plasma going by the windows that we do in all the other spacecrafts. You see the spacecraft sort of change color, you know, around because of that outside of the window. So they're probably seeing some of that plasma right near as they're looking out the windows. You know, Reed and Victor right there. So pretty exciting time frame. You know what's going on. Like Victor mentioned one time in one of the interviews, riding a ball of fire into the atmosphere is a little exciting. But
what does it feel like? Are you, the G-forces, and then does it get warmer inside the capsule?
No, it doesn't get warmer inside. That's the capsule is made for that. The heat shield is made for that. This entry was made specifically knowing that they had some issues from before. And so, no, you don't feel the heat inside, but you can just see what's going on around you. You'll start feeling the G-forces since they've started coming into the atmosphere. So like I said, now they're getting a little bit pushed, and the G-forces change during the entry. So there's a couple times that it feels like it's pushing down on you, then it will let up, and then it'll push down on you again. So you know you're coming home. This is obvious time right now that you know that you're coming home.
Yeah, and Sunny, thank you for that description. I want to turn to former astronaut Nick Hague. Nick, what do you remember about the experience, and are you smiling at this point? Are you nervous? Like, what's the feeling as you're entering, back, getting ready for that splashdown?
Yeah,
Walk us through that.
It's an assault on the senses. Sunny hit it right. You look out the window and you get this light show, which is amazing when you think about the physics behind the heat shield and how it slowly melts away and burns away and brings you and slows you down. But you also get a lot of sound. You're out in the vacuum of space, and there's not a lot of sound that you hear as you interface with the very upper atmosphere. But as you get deeper into the atmosphere, you start to hear wind noise, and you really get a sense for the speed that you're going. It's a pretty amazing ride.
Wow. Again, a visualization. Although Rob and I both were like, oh, my God, it's happening.
And you talk about this inferno outside your window like it's an everyday thing. It's just, at any point during your mind when you go through one of these reentries, do you think, oh, I hope this heat shield works here?
Oh, again, to talk about the team, a decade of people really crossing the T's and dotting the I's, making sure, we've taken all the lessons learned on spacecraft beforehand and incorporating into that. So we have a lot of trust. There's a lot of trust in this business and in our team to make sure that they do the right thing.
And is there any chit-chat going on during this blackout period?
I'm sure they're like looking at each other, and probably the color inside of the spacecraft's a little bit different because of the plasma. I remember on Soyuz, everybody looked a little bit, the whole inside looked a little bit pink because we have windows on the side. So yeah, I'm sure they're looking around and talking to each other about it.
Well, NASA is about to reestablish contact with Mission Control, so we want to listen in and hear what they have to say.
We are now processing data from Integrity. Landing and support officer reports the small boats are en route to the splashdown target zone. Passing through 150,000 feet, our trajectory is perfect. We're getting intermittent views of Integrity. Still waiting to establish voice communication.
Integrity, Houston, comm check, post-blackout.
Houston, Integrity, we have you loud and clear.
Your trajectory is nominal, and your recovery teams have visual.
Guidance looks good.
No action for the enabled internal camera controller fail.
Big cheers from the viewing room here in Mission Control as
everything looking good as we're just listening to Mission Control talk about the data that they're already processing as the capsule makes its way to its splashdown. I want to turn to you, Dave, because now we're at the point where they're talking about the boats getting ready. Again, this is something that, you've planned. This is years in the making. What's going through the minds of those who are there, and they're also getting this information in real time?
So as everybody's tracking everything, they're just executing what they've been trained to do. So it's game on for everybody there. Everybody's excited. Everybody's happy to hear from the crew now that they have contact back. And everybody's going to start moving closer and closer to the capsule and ready to extract the crew from the spacecraft.
And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that's what we're seeing right there, that first.
It is. So that is one of the small boats moving in. So everything is precise based on time. And as time goes on and debris gets tracked and stuff like that, they'll actually move closer and closer to the spacecraft.
Integrity impact to the camera controller fail.
And right now the ship is headed in from one of their checkpoints as well to get closer.
When you think about what is gained from some of what we're learning and the idea of possibly being able to go even beyond the moon one day, why did it take so long?
Time to splash down 4.5 minutes.
Well, you know, we spent the last couple decades building the International Space Station and flying the space shuttle to learn about how we operate in low Earth orbit. And we've learned so much from that, that it's sort of opened the door, you know, of course, technology as it comes in computers, but also manufacturing. All of that has changed over the last, like, 3 decades and allows us to build these amazing spacecraft nowadays that allow the crew members to take those observations, which was, oh, there it is.
And then we have a NASA plane right now capturing Artemis 2, making its way down. Again, we know that the speed at this point is, I believe we're at about, I want to listen to mission control, but I'm not sure if we're at the maximum or if we've passed that period yet.
I think we're subsonic now.
You were subsonic, so they probably heard the boom.
Yeah.
And still no parachute. There you go.
Oh, there's the parachute.
And
Okay.
there go the first series of parachutes.
And we're about 4 minutes
and
away.
we're on drogues.
Yeah.
You hear people cheering.
Here we go. Yeah.
2 drogues out the window.
Look at that.
2 good drogue shoots. Next up.
We copy. We see them.
Next up, the deployment of pilot parachutes that will pull the main chutes out. Time to splash down 3 minutes and 10 seconds. Perfect descent rate according to flight dynamics.
Good rates on 2 drogues.
We see the same on board.
Passing through 10,000 feet, still on drogues. Main chute deploy. We're at 5,000 feet. Search and recovery beacon has been activated on integrity. And we have 3 good main chutes. Good 3 main chutes, good reefing, good descent rate.
Good rates, and we see 3 good-looking parachutes. Integrity. Cabin pressure indicates no need for hydrazine checks.
Integrity copies.
This is a perfect descent for integrity. Its crew sounding hale and hearty on board. Time to splash down 1 minute, 15 seconds. Integrity about to complete a journey spanning 694,481 miles from its launch from the Kennedy Space Center back on April 1st, and a trip around the moon. passing through 1,000 feet.
Houston Integrity, Splashdown, sending post-landing command now.
Splashdown confirmed.
Copy Splashdown, waiting on VLDR.
Splashdown confirmed at 7:07 p.m. Central Time, 5:07 p.m. Pacific Time. From the pages of Jules Verne to a modern-day mission to the moon, a new chapter of the exploration of our celestial neighbor is complete. Integrity's astronauts back on Earth. And the landing and support officer reports the vehicle is stable 1. We still will be deploying the crew module uprighting system to maintain that orientation. A perfect bullseye splashdown for Integrity and its 4 astronauts.
We are all breathing a sigh of relief. So much excitement. We're clapping with everybody else.
So good.
We're watching it. As you just heard, Rob Navias, the NASA commentator there, saying that this was pretty much a perfect landing with precision, the way that it oriented itself. Sunny, Dave, give us your thoughts as you're watching, as you're seeing everything work the way that it's supposed to.
I'm super excited for these guys. And, you know, it's funny because you do this like check, check, check as one thing after another. As we were watching all the parachutes come out, there's 11 on this vehicle. So when you, one after another, and you can feel when the mains come out. And then it's like, okay, great. That's good. We're going to land a little softer than if we didn't have those. So that's a good thing, right? So it's like check, check. Next thing is, you know, the crew is then getting ready for the splashdown. So they're just making sure, you know, their bodies are in the right position. They're all strapped in as good as they can. And the splashdown, of course, itself, you know, okay, boom, we're down, and now let's make sure we're staying upright, because that would be good and not be, you know, turned over, which we call stable 2. So that's another check. And now I think they're just hanging out, waiting for the rescue forces to come get them. Just happy, you know, to have them back on the ground. It's really awesome.
And Dave, to that point with the splashdown, how long before we could possibly see the astronauts?
Yeah, so there's a lot of excitement, and all the forces that have been training for this for a long time are starting to move in. You can see the small vessels moving in right now. From the hatch opening until having them in the med bay is going to be an hour or less, is what they're shooting for. So they're going to get there as quick as possible, make sure everything's good, and then they're going to get them out of the capsule so they can start hoisting them.
All right. I want to turn to Nick Hague. You know, this is a small community. It's like you all are all family, having experienced this on some level, maybe not to this extent, obviously, but you've been to space, you've been in a splashdown, you're watching these images as they're coming in. What's going through your mind?
I'm happy for them. It's so exciting. I think that you mentioned a word, family, right? So the mission really isn't over until you get them back.
They were able to observe parts of the moon that had never been seen by human eyes before, and the crew actually observed a crater that was unnamed, and the crew requested that the crater be called Carol, in honor of the mission commander's late wife, Reed Weissman's late wife, who died at the age of 46 from cancer. So I think that's a moment that a lot of people will be remembering, guys, in a mission of firsts, a historic mission, the first time that humans have been in deep space for decades, the first time we've been to the moon in decades since those 1970s Apollo missions, and hopefully this will be the springboard for more lunar missions. Of course, this is all to set up Artemis 3 as early as 2027, which is designed to land astronauts on the moon in the South Pole region of the moon where there's water and things like that, and ultimately to build a permanent lunar base, guys.
Yeah, Derek, maybe we could stay on those live pictures, because I don't know, have the boats reached the spacecraft or the module or the capsule, I guess, yet, or I know they're speeding out there toward it, but I know they're, what, about 50 miles off the coast of San Diego, so I don't know if we could keep those pictures up and sort of watch along with it. But yeah, you mentioned the heat shield, and I'd read those interviews with the astronauts who were concerned about it. It seems like on the Artemis 1, the heat shield kind of broke apart in places due to some gas buildup on re-entry, and they used the same heat shield for this Artemis 2. They're changing it for Artemis 3, but they didn't have time to change it for Artemis 2. So they were going up. They said it will withstand coming back into the Earth's atmosphere and will protect the astronauts. But it was kind of nerve-wracking to hear the concerns voiced by other astronauts about the re-entry.
Yes, and what they did, they couldn't modify the heat shield, as you correctly said, but they could modify the angle of re-entry. And so what they did is they changed the angle. I think they made it steeper. And that kind of gave them the confidence that the heat shield would not be exposed to too much heat. But as I mentioned before, 5,000 degrees at the one point was how hot it was outside the heat shield. That is half of the temperature of the surface of the sun. So it is a lot to withstand for sure. What's interesting is, they were going 24,600 miles when they first entered Earth's atmosphere. That is extremely fast. It is not the record, though. They believe they were just short of the all-time speed record, which was set by Apollo 10. I think that mission was back in 1969. It's a long time ago. So, yes, as we await here, it looks like they have those flotation devices activated on the capsule. Those red dots, I believe, are to basically upright the capsule. They don't know exactly which way it's going to land. There are essentially 3 ways it could land, and basically those inflatable devices there are to upright the ship so it's, you got the hatch in the right spot when the divers arrive.
And it's so astonishing, to your point, Derek, just talking about the deceleration going from more than 24,000 miles per hour, just to wrap your head around that large of a number, all the way down to 20 miles per hour.
Yeah, you got to be tough. That's why they use these like Navy test pilots, because and Air Force test pilots, because the astronauts were subjected to about 4 Gs. That's the force of 4 times Earth's gravity when they're slowing down. That is actually not as intense as some of the Apollo missions. Some of the Apollo crews were subjected to 6 or 7 Gs, which is just incredible. So yeah, it's no easy task to re-enter Earth's atmosphere.
And so many people, I'm sure, just breathing a sigh of relief, themselves as well as their family members who are watching with intensity.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're going to wait for those the NASA and Navy crews to get out there and open the hatch and check them out. And we'll continue following this here throughout the evening. We'll be right back.
When we came out of that 6-minute blackout, there are actually people here along the waterfront. Even though you can't see this, people here are out there. They're looking, they're hoping they could see something, but I think people just want to be a part of this, and that's why they're here. And this does feel like a collective moment for all of us right now. Let's talk about what's going to happen next. We're in this period right now where Navy divers are kind of waiting. They're waiting for some of those hot, maybe dangerous gases to dissipate off the capsule, and then they're going to move in. And what's going to happen is they're going to install a stabilizing collar around the capsule, and basically that's going to keep it stable and keep it from rocking too much in the ocean. And then I also heard one of our astronaut commentators talking about the front porch. That's an inflatable raft that they're going to pull up to the front of this, where they're basically going to, those Navy divers who are also medical doctors are going to climb onto that raft. They're going to open the capsule, and they're going to go inside the capsule first to check on those astronauts, make sure they're okay, and then they're going to start moving forward with the mission to get them out. We've got 4 helicopters circling overhead right now, 2 for imagery and 2 to transport astronauts. Now the order in which they are going to leave the capsule has already been decided. We're not sure what it is. We're not privy to that, but here's what's going to happen. They're going to hoist them up with helicopters, and they're going to bring them back over to the ship, and then they're going to start a barrage of medical tests. We're talking about saliva samples, blood tests, motor tests, cognitive tests, and those are going to be going on for the next few hours just to see how this space flight over the last 10 days in this microgravity environment has impacted these astronauts. Once they are ready, they could take a nap on the ship if they want. They could stay there for the night if they want, but more likely they're going to bring them back here to North Island Naval Station by helicopter. They could potentially spend the night here in San Diego at a hotel before they move on to Houston and reunite with their families.
All right, well, chivalry is not dead, so I want to see astronaut Cook come off first. Ladies first. I want to turn to you now, though, Rob Marciano, who has a special update for us. So excited about this one.
Well, with this follow-up story, as we say in the news business. So last week at the launch, I got to meet a lot of great Americans, a lot of young, aspiring astronauts as well outside the Kennedy Space Center. We got to speak with one young future astronaut. Take a listen.
I'm so obsessed with space, so I'll see Orion launch from ground to sky, so it'll be totally exciting.
Well, Commander Jack instantly launched to superstar status after that, as you can imagine. So we're bringing him back. There he is with Mom and Dad.
Hey.
Joining us, I assume, from Atlanta. They drove from Atlanta to the Space Center to watch the launch. And there you are. Hey, Mom, did you wash the spacesuit? Because I know it was not quite as white by the end of the launch there a week and a half ago.
We did wash it, but it's honestly stained. We need to get a new space.
I love it. Get yourself an orange one. That's the key on launch and landing. All right, Jack, you just witnessed your first splashdown. What are you feeling right now?
Happy.
Were you nervous when we didn't hear from the astronauts for that 6-minute blackout period? No, you knew. You're just like the astronauts on set here. They just don't get nervous. I think you're built for this stuff. So after everything that you've seen, you saw the launch with Mom and Dad and your sister and with me, and you've been watching it, I'm sure, throughout the week when you're not at school. Do you still want to be an astronaut after all this?
Yeah.
That's the right answer, Jack. That's the right answer. Look, I know it's past your bedtime, so I don't expect you to be as excited as you were the other afternoon. But I know that you have been wanting to ask the astronaut team a question. Why don't you share that with us if you were to be speaking to the astronauts right now?
Yeah, what did you want to tell them? What did you want to tell Artemis crew? You said you wanted to thank them for something.
Thank you for sending pictures to the world.
Thank you. I think, yeah, we're all saying thank you. Those pictures were absolutely stunning. Jack, do you have a favorite picture? Was it one of the moon itself? Is it the one with the moon and the Earth, or the one with the Earth so far away it looks so tiny? What was your favorite?
Say it loud.
Say it loud. It was like the one which had the word Mars on it, and it was pointing at it too.
So our favorite picture was the eclipse, where you could see Mars in the background.
Oh yeah.
And we showed him where one was labeled so that you could see that it was Mars. So that was our favorite picture, was the eclipse.
That was so good.
There you go. I agree. I think you could see Saturn on that one, and all the stars. That was amazing. Hey, do you guys think you're going to go to the next launch?
You want to go see Artemis 3?
Yeah.
All right, Jack, Lauren, Matt, thank you so much. Good luck to you, Jack. We expect you to be on a rocket here sometime in the near future. Study hard and get yourself through school. You're a fine young man. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Bye, Jack.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we can all agree Jack is going far in life.
How old were you when you knew you wanted to be a
my story's a little convoluted. I didn't know it for a little while. I envy kids like that who have a goal right from the get-go and then go for it. It's pretty spectacular, and this really puts it, at their fingertips when they can be there, watching, a launch or watching, pictures of the moon. They're thinking to themselves, why not? Let us do that. I'm a little older, so it only happened a couple times. That I remember. I was a little young when it all happened, but I can see where kids nowadays are seeing people going to space all the time. Now seeing us go to the moon, and I can't imagine that they're not thinking, let me be part of that. I want to be part of that.
And it's possible.
It's possible.
Well, what is possible is we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Stay with us as we continue to launch our coverage of Artemis 2's return to Earth.
I believe there's no one like you.
return to Earth. The 4 crew members just splashed down safely in the Pacific Ocean. The recovery operations is underway right now by the United States Navy. Before we take you off of the image that you're seeing right there, which was just incredible, that's right now what you're seeing is a live picture. I want to check back in with senior national correspondent Mark Strassman. He's at NASA's Johnson Space Center. What is the definition of success for NASA? I know they kept talking about a safe landing, but it seemed like so many things went well, Mark.
Well, clearly, Jerika, NASA believes that this would not be a home run if the crew did not come back safely, and we completely understand that, too. The crew is back safely. This test flight was aced by the capsule, was aced by the crew, no question about that. I asked Reed Wise. So many more ambitious things to come, that this mission would lead to so much more. Remember, it's a test flight. It's supposed to lead to a moon landing, and then who knows from there? I mean, establish a permanent colony on the moon, lead on to Mars. And that's what Wiseman meant when he said, if people don't remember this mission much, that's fine with him. That means we'll have succeeded.
All right, Mark Strassman, thank you. Going back to CBS News space contributor Bill Harwood, I know you've been covering a lot of these space missions for over 40 years now. Your last thoughts here.
You know, I was struck by something Mark said earlier. If you're under 53 years old, you were not alive when Apollo was flying. The Apollo program is in a history book for you. But this is now. This is real for a new generation. And I think that's really important in terms of getting younger people to think about this, to think about the moon as a destination, not just something you look up at the sky at night and enjoy. Quite a moment.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Harwood. And Nick Hague, final thoughts from you in D.C.?
Yeah, you know, this is the step, and there's another step after that. And, you know, you asked, how do we keep this going? Everybody that's watching this, that's excited about this, it takes so many to make this happen, so many people. Join, figure out how to get involved. There's room for you to be able to be part of something like this.
All right, Nick, thank you. And joining me here at the table, we couldn't have done this without you guys. Thank you so much. You've been great in terms of guiding us through the coverage. But as you watch, and we know we're going to see the astronauts come out soon in the next 30 minutes or so, what are your final thoughts as you watch all of this, and again, you hear the clapping and the celebration?
It's been absolutely amazing. This is history, and like your correspondent said, this is for a new generation. And so it's really been amazing, and I know now everybody's just focusing on getting the crew safely back on the ship and getting them to their families, because I know that's the most important thing, and their families have missed them.
Awesome. Sunny?
You know, it's just an amazing event. I think we all got to witness this because of new technologies, and, you know, it's just the beginning. We have so much more to do, and there's so much more to participate in, and it makes me really excited for the future, for the next generation of STEM and astronauts out there.
All right, Sunny, thank you. Rob, thank you for the great weather. Thank you to all of our guests and correspondents. Our coverage of Artemis 2 return to Earth will continue on CBS News 24/7, your local news, and of course tomorrow on CBS Saturday morning. CBS Friday primetime programming will begin right now in its entirety for those of you in the East and Central time zones. This has been a CBS News Special Report. I'm Jerika Duncan. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great night.
About the fact that we're going to keep doing this more and more and more.
It's incredibly exciting. I mean, yes, it's the contributions, like the best and brightest across the NASA workforce from across the country, our industry partners, our international partners. We had a Canadian Space Agency astronaut on board in Jeremy. We had the European Service Module. And you think in the days leading up to this launch, I mean, 48 hours prior to launching Artemis 2, I was meeting with the Italian Space Agency. We signed a memorandum of understanding to build a habitation module on the moon. I mean, you have countries, all of our allies and partners coming together saying, we are committed to this effort. We are returning to the moon. We're doing it to stay. We are building that enduring presence. We are going to master the skills on the surface of the moon so someday we can undertake missions to Mars. It's just an incredibly exciting time, and we're not going at it alone. We're bringing everybody along with us.
Absolutely. And speaking of everyone, one more time, we're going to ask the crew here, you guys ready to land on the moon? Awesome. I love that. Okay, well, thank you so much, Administrator. Appreciate you being here. We're, of course, going to stay on to watch the crew get extracted from Orion, so stay tuned, and we'll see you back here shortly.
Thank you, Megan, and thank you, Administrator Isaacman. We are in the process of working to establish that communications link and to establish the procedures that will lead to the power down of the spacecraft, which is gently bobbing in the Pacific following a bullseye touchdown that occurred at 7:07 p.m. Central Time, 5:07 p.m. Pacific Time, 2.5 hours before sunset in the Pacific, southwest of San Diego. We have once again heard from the crew during that interview opportunity with the administrator, and we have 4 healthy crew members on board. We now have confirmation that the vehicle has been powered down as per the procedures. So we have vehicle powered down, and the flight control team here in Houston, Flight Director Rick Henfling, has handed over mission authority to the Exploration Ground Systems team out in the Pacific. Now, we will physically not get off console with this team until the crew has been extracted into the front porch, that inflatable raft that will be erected along the side hatch of Integrity. So we're standing by for that in the next step in the recovery procedures. But everything is in great shape, and we have 4 healthy crew members on board the vehicle. All of the entry events went by the book, no issues, perfect trajectory for Integrity that was culminated with one final raise burn to improve the angle of attack for the vehicle as it entered the Earth's atmosphere. All of that flight dynamics computation worked like a charm. So we are standing by for the recovery team to approach Integrity and begin the process of erecting that inflatable raft called the front porch, which will see the crew members be extracted from the hatch of Orion into that inflatable raft before they're hoisted aboard 2 Navy helicopters in a variety of different configurations. Each crew member will be hoisted in sequential fashion, in alternating fashion, 2 crew members for each helicopter before they turn around to head back to the John P. Murtha. Once on the deck of the ship, they'll be brought into medical bay for comprehensive medical exams. But Reed Wiseman has reported several times that the crew is in excellent shape. So just to recap, it has been some 26 and a half minutes since the splashdown of Integrity in the Pacific. The vehicle is in excellent shape. It performed like a champ all the way down through the Earth's atmosphere. All of the vehicle functions were checked off in excellent trip hammer fashion. The parachutes all deployed as planned. Splashdown occurring at 7:07 p.m. Central Time, 5:07 p.m. Pacific Time. And after a bit of a tussle to try to establish a communications link with the recovery team, we were finally able to run through the procedures for the powering down of the vehicle. We've handed over mission authority to the Exploration Ground Systems folks out in the Pacific, and the recovery team will be approaching the vehicle shortly to erect the inflatable raft called the front porch before opening the hatch to Integrity to bring the crew members onto that raft before they're hoisted onto two Navy helicopters, two crew members for each helicopter, before they're flown back to the deck of the USS John P. Murtha. This is Mission Control Houston. After talking to the flight dynamics folks, we have a bit of a refinement on the splashdown time for you. Their computation shows a splashdown time of 7:07 and 27 seconds p.m. Central Time, 7:07 and 27 seconds p.m. Central Time. That would equate to a mission elapsed time of 9 days, 1 hour, 32 minutes, and 15 seconds. Once again, from Flight Dynamics, a splashdown time of 7:07 and 27 seconds p.m. Central Time. That would equate to a mission elapsed time of 9 days, 1 hour, 32 minutes, and 15 seconds. Reports from the Pacific indicate that the recovery team, in communications with the crew aboard Integrity, that the crew remains in excellent shape as they await the approach of the team for a final hazard gas evaluation before they move to the side of the vehicle to erect the inflatable life raft called the front porch. Again, no issues with Integrity. The vehicle is powered down. All of its systems are now safed. We have handed over mission authority to the Exploration Ground Systems folks in the Pacific, but we will not stand down and have the entry flight control team depart its positions until that inflatable raft, the front porch, is erected, the hatch open, and the crew having exited the vehicle. So that's the next step in the recovery process that will lead to the hoisting of the crew members. For 2 crew members for each helicopter, they'll be hoisted to a pair of Navy helicopters that will then fly a short distance back to the USS John P. Murtha. What you're looking at is one of the fast boats circling the vehicle to make a hazard assessment. This is Mission Control Houston. Once again, you're watching the initiation of the recovery of the Artemis crew aboard Integrity. All of the Navy divers and the fast boats are now approaching the spacecraft after conducting a hazard assessment. The vehicle has been powered down. Entry Flight Director Rick Henfling now waiting for the life raft, the front porch, to be erected along the side of the vehicle so that the hatch can be opened and the crew members extracted from Integrity, soon to be hoisted one by one into a pair of Navy helicopters for a short flight back to the deck of the USS John P. Murtha. If you missed it earlier, we talked to Flight Dynamics and received a more official touchdown time or splashdown time, as it were, of 7:07 and 27 seconds p.m. Central Time, 5:07 and 27 seconds p.m. Pacific Time. That would equate to a mission elapsed time of 9 days, 1 hour, 32 minutes, and 15 seconds. Continuing to get excellent views from the imagery assets out at sea in the Pacific of Integrity. We continue to get good reports from the landing and support officer, who's in contact with the recovery team, that the crew is in excellent shape, no issues. They're just currently biding their time, waiting for the front porch to be erected. We have no hazardous hazard gases and no hazardous situation with the vehicle. It performed perfectly all the way down from entry interface to its splashdown in the Pacific at 7:07 and 27 seconds p.m. Central Time. And as you can see, the first phalanx of recovery personnel now pulling up alongside of Integrity. This includes Navy divers and Navy flight surgeon and other recovery personnel who have trained for several years for this recovery process. At this hour, some 41 minutes following splashdown, the vehicle has been powered down. There's no hazardous gas emanating from the vehicle. That's why the first team of recovery personnel has been able to pull alongside Integrity. And the reports continue to come in that the 4 astronauts are in excellent shape. Yes. This is Mission Control Houston, continuing to watch the initiation of the recovery of Integrity's astronauts. One by one, they'll be brought out of the spacecraft onto a large inflatable raft just a short time from now. In the meantime, we can go back to the USS John P. Murtha, where my colleague Megan Cruz is standing by to provide her situation report. Megan, can you hear us?
Hey, Rob. Yes, I can hear you. Thank you. Yeah, we're back here on the bow of the recovery ship where there are still plenty of people peering out into the water. We are not very far from the action everyone is seeing on their screen now. The Orion spacecraft, Integrity, in the ocean, surrounded by a number of recovery boats. As Rob has been saying, in those recovery boats, NASA and Navy personnel specifically trained to get the astronauts out of Orion. In some of our wide shots, you can probably see that there are 6 boats out in the water. More than 40 people out in the water right now on those boats. First order of business is to set up the front porch and the stabilization collar. You might also hear it referred to as a stab collar. Basically just to make sure that Orion stays upright, doesn't sway in the water too much, again, to make it easier for recovery forces to get the astronauts out. Again, we splashed down in the Pacific Ocean just after 5 p.m. Pacific time here. It's a requirement by NASA to be able to get the crew out of Orion within 2 hours of splashdown. So doing great on time so far. Plenty of time. No rush either. I was speaking to NASA flight surgeon Rick Schuring earlier in this broadcast, and he said to me, no rush to get the crew out. Just want to make sure that they're feeling good, and whenever they're ready to take their step out of Orion and onto that large raft, the front porch, folks will be ready. As there are mission audio loops in Mission Control in Houston, there is a mission audio loop here on the ship, and it was just reported out that the side hatch is open. Side hatch of integrity is open. You're getting these beautiful shots from our aerial assets. The ship itself, where I'm on, just 3,000 yards away. Again, plenty of people on the boat here, glued to the side closest to where they can see all this action. And again, with just 3,000 yards separating us, great views from the bow here. You can see now that side hatch is open. One of the Navy personnel is about to get inside there. In they go. In total, 4 will go into Orion. So it'll be a little bit of a tight squeeze, but the goal is to have a recovery personnel with each astronaut assessing them. Boats getting closer now. Again, that one that's right up against Orion, those are the divers that will go in to the spacecraft to check on each of the astronauts. These other boats will begin doing a number of things, putting on that stabilization collar onto Orion, building that front porch. Eventually, they will retrieve the parachutes, as well as tow Orion back to the well deck of the recovery ship here. And so as we wait for the Navy and NASA personnel to get their assessment of the crew inside of Orion, why don't we toss it back to Rob for an update?
Yeah, thank you, Megan. Here in Mission Control, Flight Director Rick Henfling and the entry team of flight controllers still on duty. The vehicle has been powered down for some time now. There are no hazardous gases emanating from integrity. That, of course, allowed the recovery personnel to approach the vehicle and then open the hatch to begin the initial medical assessment of the crew, as you just indicated. Now we're standing by for the erection of that inflatable raft, the front porch, alongside of the vehicle that will enable the crew to be extracted one by one onto the raft, have a moment or two to get their land legs back before they're hoisted into 2 hovering Navy helicopters, 2 crew members for each helicopter, for a short flight back to the deck of the USS John P. Murtha. All of Integrity's systems operated flawlessly throughout the course of the approach to the Earth, the entry into the Earth's atmosphere, and all of the key milestones that followed in this high-speed return to Earth for integrity. A mission that spanned more than 694,000 miles from the vehicle's launch from the Kennedy Space Center atop the Space Launch System back on April 1st. As we mentioned at the top of the broadcast, the last time that the Apollo program saw a splashdown in the Pacific was Apollo 17 back on December 19th, 1972. So for the first time in 53 and a half years, we have reenacted that with the arrival of Integrity's astronauts as they flew around the moon in that historic lunar flyby that began with a trans-lunar injection burn that took them out of Earth orbit following 24 hours of a high Earth orbit trajectory. The high Earth orbit trajectory enabled flight controllers here to have a full 24 hours to evaluate the systems on Integrity and the condition of the crew before they would commit to flying to the moon. With the side hatch of Orion having been opened to set the stage for the erection of the inflatable life raft, known as the front porch, to be erected alongside the spacecraft for the extraction of the crew. Let's play for you an interview that my colleague Megan Cruz conducted on the USS John P. Murtha with Navy diver First Class David McMahon that explains how this process is unfolding.
Okay, Davey, so you and some of your team, one last look over of the stabilization collar, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so what is this stabilization collar?
This is what's going to stabilize the capsule out there in the ocean. We don't know how good the weather or the waves will be that day, so this will help prevent any unnecessary occurrences from happening, stabilizing the capsule and the astronauts inside.
So basically this is a float that will go around Orion. I'm assuming that what they're doing right now, these are the lines that will attach the collar onto Orion?
That is correct.
And so what are they doing here?
So we've got the lower line that will secure the inflation device before we inflate it. That gives us the go-ahead that it's secure in its space, and then we'll inflate it. And then once that is done, we'll undo all the carabiners and get this orange line on top tied in the same fashion. And then this will be secured to the capsule, and the astronauts can safely take their first steps out of the capsule onto the front porch.
Okay, and how long will it take them to set up the stabilization collar?
We should definitely be able to handle this in under 10 minutes.
Okay, wow. And then you just mentioned the front porch. So basically after they set up this stabilization collar, then they set up what's called the front porch here.
That's correct.
Okay, and what's the front porch?
Front porch is basically a bigger waiting room for the astronauts to sit in while we wait for the helicopters to show up and grab them.
Okay, so the medical team that was inside with the crew, they're going to help them out and onto the front porch?
That is correct.
And then what happens here?
We have higher trained medical personnel also on board the front porch that will give them lookovers and just make sure they're okay while we wait for the helicopters to show up.
Okay. How does it feel, I mean, your team, you, to be part of a mission that's returning astronauts from the moon in more than 50 years?
We all feel extremely honored to be a part of this, as well as a bigger mission for the Navy and joining up with NASA to do great things.
Mm-hmm. And do you feel like you and your team are ready?
Yes, very ready.
Cool. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Once again, the recovery operations are continuing out in the Pacific. We shortly should see that life raft, the front porch, erected alongside the side hatch of the vehicle. A number of flight controllers have come into the flight control room to receive congratulations from Entry Flight Director Rick Henfling. But we're going to stick with our operations out in the Pacific as we await the extraction of the 4 crew members who are reported to be in excellent condition. Again, while we stand by for that front porch to be erected alongside of the side hatch of the vehicle, let's go back to the USS John P. Murtha and Megan Cruz. Megan?
Hey, Rob. Pausing now to listen to some internal audio loops. Again, the operations team here on the ship communicating with everyone out on the water. It seems like currents are hindering them a little bit from unfurling and inflating the stabilization collar as well as the front porch. But again, the requirement to get the crew out within 2 hours of splashdown, plenty of time. So no concerns just yet. But as calm as the water looks, yeah, it looks like it's hindering the teams just a tad. You can see in some of our shots that side hatch still open. Again, inside there are now 8 people inside. 4 divers, Navy divers, all with medical training, each assigned to an astronaut each. Making sure that they're comfortable, feeling good. As you've heard us say in the broadcast, you know, they expect a little bit of discomfort. Again, these astronauts just traveled back to Earth at 25,000 miles an hour, a nearly 695,000 mile journey around the moon. If you think you get carsick. Again, 6 boats out there, lots of gear with them, just in case, right? As we said, the crew reported feeling great, but again, all those folks out there in case they weren't, right? NASA is all about making sure we think about every situation that can happen, and so, of course, wanted to be ready in case any of our astronauts needed more medical attention while out there in the water. You see now teams, again, trying to set up the stabilization collar and front porch for the crew to get out of Orion. They need both, right? The stabilization collar will keep Orion from swaying as you see it is doing now. And then they will connect the front porch to the stabilization collar so that the crew can take 2 steps and they will be in the front porch. Not a lot of chatter on the mission audio loops. That's a good thing. Again, things proceeding pretty nominally, even if they're fighting some currents out there on the Pacific Ocean. Again, the goal, setting up the stabilization collar and the front porch so that the crew can rest comfortably in the front porch, get placed into harnesses so that 2 helicopters can lift them off the front porch and onto the USS John Murtha here. The helicopters are going to take turns picking up an astronaut. So again, Helo 1 and Helo 2. Okay, and the recovery team here on the ship just got a report from the undersea medical officer who is inside the capsule with the crew. He is reporting all 4 members are green. All of our 4 astronauts, Reed, Victor, Christina, Jeremy, green, meaning they are feeling great, not the complexion of their skin. They are feeling great, happy to be home, and ready to be extracted as soon as possible. And so, as I was saying, we have 2 helicopters circling the activity you're seeing on the water right now. Each will take turns picking up an astronaut. So Helo 1 will come on in, hover above the front porch, about 40 feet above the front porch. A Navy recovery specialist will be hoisted down into the front porch.
The restricted maneuvering doctrine is in effect.
We'll connect to the first astronaut, which we're expecting to be Christina. And then Helo 2 comes around, picks up Jeremy, while Helo 1 stays above head, and then Helo 1 will come back in for another astronaut, and then Helo 2 for the last astronaut, and then back to the flight deck here on the recovery ship. I was talking to Assistant Artemis Recovery Director Paul Sierpinski. He said helos are a much quicker, safer way to get on board. They did actually consider boats, but then if you think about it, longer time, the crew would have to move through more of the ship. This way the helos will give a more direct, quicker route to the medical bay for our 4 astronauts. Beautiful shots from our aerial and imagery teams. Clouds have dissipated for a clear view from the bow of the recovery ship here. You can still see divers in the water there. Encircling Orion, that is that stabilization collar we've been telling you about. As you saw in that interview just a few minutes ago, they have to first connect it to Orion, and then once it's secured onto Orion, they can inflate it, and then they'll further secure it with other harnesses and lines. About an hour and 10 minutes since splashdown in the Pacific Ocean here. Reed, Victor, Christina, and Jeremy back home after a history-making mission to the moon and back. If you missed what we said just a couple of minutes ago, the undersea medical officer inside with the crew in Orion reporting all 4 crew members feeling great. Progress being made there on the stabilization collar. It looks like they are beginning to inflate it. And it looks like they're starting to unfold the front porch in order to get that into the water here shortly and inflate that as well. Again, more than 40 people out in the water right now. And those Navy and NASA personnel have been in the water for now about 4 hours. The reason why they had to get out so early is just to stage everything. And actually here on the ship, when there are flight operations happening, you can't have anything else, right? Just because the flight deck can be a dangerous place, so they just want to focus on planes coming and going from the ship, so that's why they wanted to get the boats in the water to make sure that they have all the time they needed for the flight ops. And then the same crew here out in the water, they will stay out in the water for a number of hours after we recover the crew and get them back on the ship, because then they have to recover Orion. All right, that stabilization collar looking good around Orion. We're now seeing some recovery personnel getting on to that collar. Again, they need to further attach it to Orion to make sure that it can really prop up the spacecraft. It's basically lifting it up off of the water just a tad. Again, so it's not so...
Come off me for a minute.
So it doesn't sway so much in the water there. And now that front porch looks like it's nearly fully inflated as well. You can see a much larger surface area. And so once the crew get out of Orion, they can stretch their legs a little bit on this front porch, get some fresh air. And enjoy this beautiful day here on their home planet. It appears teams now are about to connect the front porch to the stabilization collar. And at that point, when both are secure, we should soon see astronauts come out of Orion. All these views you see also being fed to the Landing Force Operations Center here on the ship. Of course, it is very important for our recovery teams leading the mission to have all the views that you're seeing as well. Again, listening to their communication loop here on the ship. Very quiet, which is a good thing. It means things are going pretty nominally, meaning as expected. Again, all this activity happening just 3,000 yards away from the ship. So that means this will be a very quick flight back on the helicopters for the crew. 2-3 minutes, and then they'll be back here on the ship.
I know.
Okay, saw a thumbs up from one of the personnel on the front porch. It looks like they are now getting ready to deploy what they call the Air Rescue Vest, ARV. And so this is the harness that each crew member will get into in order to be hoisted into the helicopters. Again, those helicopters hovering just about 40 feet above the front porch when they're ready to pick up each crew member.
This is Mission Control Houston. Behind me, a fairly raucous scene as hundreds of flight controllers have poured into the flight control room here. This is reminiscent of the scene after the final shuttle mission of STS-135, although that was the end of a program. This is only the beginning of a program with the textbook splashdown of Integrity and its 4 astronauts. We're standing by for the crew to be extracted from the spacecraft. Entry Flight Director Rick Henfling invited all of these flight controllers who have contributed to this mission to enter the flight control room to have an opportunity to receive well wishes and to share the mutual glow that exists in the wake of a textbook mission for Integrity. On the front screen here in Mission Control, a sign that says "Welcome Home Integrity," taking humanity back to the moon, going further, and returning safely to Earth. So all of that jubilation, part of the post-splashdown activities, even as we await the crew being extracted from the vehicle to be hoisted onto Navy helicopters for the trip back to the USS John P. Murtha.
Family Plus.
Once again here in Mission Control, this view of the Artemis flight control room, known as the White Flight Control Room. This is the old shuttle flight control room, and now is the home of Artemis missions to the moon and beyond. Once again, quite a few flight controllers were invited in by Entry Flight Director Rick Henfling to share in the jubilation following the successful splashdown of Integrity. That splashdown occurring an hour and 22 minutes ago, as we stand by for the completion of the extraction of the crew, and ultimately they're hoisting onto Navy helicopters for a short flight back to the USS John P. Murtha. Splashdown occurred at 7:07 and 27 seconds p.m. Central Time. I had an opportunity to talk to the head of flight dynamics, Jeff Birch, a moment or two ago. He said the trajectory of Integrity coming through the Earth's atmosphere was so precise, they've never seen anything line up on a ground track like today's entry by Integrity for its splashdown southwest of San Diego. And the initial, you can hear it. Jubilation here in the flight control room. The first crew member is out of Integrity. We are expecting the other crew members momentarily to be extracted. We now have 2 crew members out. Two crew members out, 2 to go. We're about 1 hour from sunset out in the Pacific. Everything continues to go well. Integrity's systems function perfectly during its entry back to Earth. And Reed Wiseman, the commander who will be last out of the vehicle, reported that all the crew members were feeling very well. Crew member number 3 now out. And now standing by for the commander, Reed Wiseman, who will be last out of his ship. Bobbing in the Pacific under almost ideal conditions, Integrity spanned 694,000 miles during its journey from launch to splashdown. And we now have Reed Wiseman out of the vehicle, all 4 crew members now out of Integrity. Once again, all 4 crew members now on the front porch, and the procedure to begin hoisting them up to these 2 Navy helicopters hovering overhead will begin shortly. This is Mission Control Houston. The mission is over, but the melody lingers on as jubilation continues here in the flight control room. We should be expecting NASA's Associate Administrator, Amit Kshatriya, to be joining us shortly for a short interview while the recovery operations continue out in the Pacific. So we'll stand by for that. And then we'll turn it back over to Megan Cruz aboard the USS John P. Murtha. This is Mission Control Houston here in the Artemis flight control room. A number of flight controllers basking in the glory of the successful end of this mission that carried 4 astronauts around the moon on a lunar flyby, and the first test flight of Orion with crew members on board. Splashdown occurring an hour and 32 minutes ago after a flawless descent back into the Earth's atmosphere for the vehicle. Its 4 crew members in good shape, simply enjoying their time right now on the front porch, as it were, the inflatable raft alongside of their Integrity spacecraft. We're expecting Amit Kshatriya, the NASA Associate Administrator, to join us here momentarily for a brief interview before we turn it back over to Megan Cruz aboard the USS John P. Murtha, the recovery ship. This is Mission Control Houston. We're about an hour and 34 minutes since the textbook splashdown of integrity in the Pacific to bring home our astronauts. And with us now is Amit Kshatriya, the NASA Associate Administrator. Amit, a little bit of history made tonight, a little bit of history made over the past few weeks. Your thoughts as this team here basks in the glow of what they just accomplished?
Yeah, Rob, we're here in the control center, and it's kind of overrun with jubilant folks in the Mission Control Houston, as well as engineering, and folks that just want to be here, part of it, as we watch our crew get extracted from the vehicle. And you know, my thought is always about these teams. The team that's in the water right now, pulling the crew out. The team here in Houston that worked so hard over the last 10 days, no sleep to get this done. You know, we still have some work to do to get the crew to the med bay here on the ship. They all look great coming out, so hopefully that won't be too long. You know, I think we saw the administrator on the boat too, giving his thanks to the Navy team on the Mirtha, which they're just an incredible group of sailors. I was able to visit with them a couple weeks ago. And then if you pull it all the way back to the workers and the folks that joined the rocket at Michoud, that made the heat shield tiles that held together tonight, that stacked the vehicle in Florida, that integrated the vehicle in Denver, that fired the engines in Stennis, that fired the boosters in Promontory. I mean, this is the entire team, coming together and being tested by the environment that this machine went through. And they did it right. The work was good. They did it right.
You've said in a number of briefings, of course, and in other forums that this is just the first step. The cadence has to step up, as the administrator has indicated. Now, it's a little early for the full report card on how Integrity did, but did this mission ultimately, from your eyes view, exceed expectations?
It absolutely did. I mean, I was waiting to talk about this until we're in the water, and I think we still have, again, work to do to bring it in and really kind of go through it bolt by bolt and see what we learned. But I mean, so far, given what we learned during the mission and given how we performed on ascent, on entry, I always think about energy in terms of the states that you worry about the most, and every time we put these machines through these incredibly energetic states, they came through. So I'm fairly confident that we made a big step tonight to get us on the path towards the surface. I think the path to the surface is open now. We do have to do all the work, and we'll make sure we talk about that as cleanly as we can. We learned a few things during the mission, but I have to tell you, this was an incredible test of an incredible machine.
From an American psyche standpoint, the Empire State Building was lit up red, white, and blue tonight. Our coverage was seen on baseball stadiums around the major leagues. How captivating was this experience for the American people, for the world, in fact, as we returned to the moon?
I have not been able to watch a lot of the coverage as we've progressed through the mission. I will tell you, just from my witness in Florida before launch, and then seeing the people's faces here, and then reading where I can about how things are going. I think this has been a gift to the world from NASA. NASA has given the world a gift, proving to folks all over the place, especially young people, and that to me is what this is really about. Young people, when they see what we can do when we work together, when we have teams that collaborate, that it doesn't matter how hard the problems are, we can solve them. I'm hopeful that Artemis 2, as folks witness what we were able to do with this incredible crew, this incredible team that we've birthed into the world, scientists and engineers and artists that have been inspired by this. And even if they don't come work in the program, which separately they should come work in the program, because Lord knows we need the help, but even if they don't want to come work in the program, hopefully they grow up to recognize they can do amazing things when they work together and contribute to society and be good citizens and really change the way, the challenges that are coming in the world are overcomable if we work together like this.
And one final question. Flying to the moon, we did it. We've done it again this past week and a half or so. But the engineering that went behind the design of this mission and the precision, the pinpoint precision of this vehicle entering that entry corridor, it's almost mind-boggling.
Yeah, it is incredible when you think about the energies involved and the uncertainties involved. That when we inserted the vehicle into orbit, it was 99.2% down the middle. When we dropped the vehicle right on top of the fleet here, our guys knew exactly where to go, but the guidance was perfect. You know, it's interesting. I've got this question a lot over the last few weeks about, you know, we did this before 53 years ago, and you know that. I mean, it is a reasonable thing to contemplate, like what's gone on since then. And what I'd tell you is, you know, when we did Apollo, which again, the more we learn about what they did, the more magical it seems what they were able to accomplish given the technology and the learnings that they had. But when we did Apollo, the architects of Apollo, you know, Gilbert, Seaman, von Braun, Mueller, what they really wanted to do, you know, as they were contemplating what it meant to expand our range of action to the lunar surface, what they wanted to do was learn how to live and work in space for a long time. They wanted to do that first before they were confident they could expand their range of action to the moon. Now, of course, the politics of the time and the mission at the time was different, and so they had to go straight to the moon and bring people home. And then after that, the program kind of lost its momentum. But you know, after that, NASA kept moving along those paths, right? So we recognized during Apollo that reusability was going to be important. We spent a lot of money on those machines, and you know, we spent a lot of money on these machines here, even though, but we recognized that reusability was important, which is why we built a winged space plane called Space Shuttle, and then we used that reusable machine to build a space station. And we learned for 25 years how to live and work in space, and have been able to develop technologies that can enable exploration. So really, what I think is now, 53 years later, we're at the point where the architects of Apollo would have been pleased that we're now ready to actually go back to the moon and go back to stay, because we've learned all the things we needed to learn.
There's a lot of people pleased here tonight, and we really thank you for joining us. Ahmed Shathria, NASA's Associate Administrator, as we begin to hoist the crew onto the helicopters to head back to the recovery ship. Thank you very much, and congratulations, Ahmed. This is Mission Control Houston, with the crew members now beginning to be hoisted aboard the Navy helicopters. Let's go to Megan Cruz aboard the USS John P. Murtha, who will take it from here.
Hey, Rob. Yeah, back on the bow of the ship here, we are seeing the helicopters circling Orion. The first one there, having just completed picking up the first astronaut. Helo 2 now, hovering just 40 feet above the front porch, lowering a recovery specialist out of the helicopter. That person will touch down in the front porch just there. The crew members already outfitted with a harness that will allow them to quickly attach to the hoisting device. Look at the power of those blades throwing water out at the center there, the front porch, with now 3 astronauts and the recovery specialists. Again, crews already outfitted with a harness vest. And here we go. Second astronaut now off the front porch, getting hoisted into the second helicopter. That helicopter will now hover just a distance away to give room for the first helicopter to come back and pick up the third astronaut. As we wait for that helicopter to come back, make its way back around, just want to mention that the President of the United States called our NASA administrator today while he was on the ship, just minutes after we interviewed him live on our coverage, and congratulated him and NASA on this history-making moment tonight. Helicopter 1 again hovering 40 feet over the front porch. We will soon see another recovery specialist getting lowered onto the front porch. Wow, imagine sitting on that front porch, the wind, the water. But again, the recovery team determined that a helicopter flight back to the ship here would be safer, faster, and more comfortable for our crew who just completed a 10-day mission around the moon. Third astronaut in the air, getting hoisted quickly back into the first helicopter now. That first helicopter now on its way back to the ship here. We will soon see it land in just a few minutes. Again, all this action happening just 3,000 yards away from us, so a very quick flight back to the flight deck. And now the only person left on the front porch, Commander Reed Wiseman. That second helicopter now making its way back over to the front porch. Here it comes. Making its final approach here. The last astronaut, Commander Reed Wiseman, now off the front porch and almost into the second helicopter. Both now on their way back to the ship where we are, the USS John P. Murtha, just west of San Diego in the Pacific Ocean. Exciting to see our 4 crew members minutes away from landing on the flight deck here on the recovery ship. 550 people on this ship, excited, ready, anxious, looking forward to welcoming this crew aboard. Watching them now with our own eyes. Close to the ship here. Hearing them begin to hover on the flight deck, which is just across from us, here on the bow. The first helicopter coming in. And wheels down. Wheels down of the first helicopter carrying 2 of our Artemis II crew. Pilot Victor Glover and mission specialist Christina Cook. Kilo 1 on deck reported on the recovery loop. Again, the mission audio loops that the recovery team are using here to communicate with one another. And an announcement just made on the ship, integrity incoming. 2 more helicopters on their way to the flight deck, one carrying the crew, the other, one of our imagery helicopters. Again, kudos to our imagery and aerial teams for giving us these beautiful views of history in the making. Set amid a gorgeous, soon-to-be sunset here in the Pacific Ocean. Second helicopter making its approach of the flight deck. Plenty of people here on the bow with their cell phones out, filming this moment. Impressive flying here by the Navy as we are seconds away from wheels down. And there you go. We now have all 4 Artemis II crew members on the USS John P. Murtha. I'm sure they're happy to be out of the water and on this recovery ship with, again, 550 people on board, ready to welcome them home. But first, as we've been saying throughout the broadcast, just making sure the crew feel good. We reported that they were feeling good when they were in Orion, but those were just initial, quick, verbal assessments of how they're feeling. Their destination tonight, the medical bay here on the ship, right after we power down the helicopters here. The team on the flight deck working quickly but methodically. Waiting for just one more helicopter to touch down. Very limited personnel here on the flight deck.
Restricted maneuvering doctrine is in effect.
As that third helicopter touches down. While just a few folks on the flight deck itself, there are plenty more on some upper decks. I see in some of our views a very packed crowd overhead. Announcements being made over the ship's loudspeaker system, reminding folks to stay clear of operational areas like the flight deck, so that teams can work quickly to get the crew off of the helicopters and into the medical bay. Splashdown today, 5:06 p.m. Pacific time. We are within 2 hours of that splashdown time, and already we have all 4 crew members on the flight deck of the USS John P. Murtha. Again, crew waiting before getting out for the helicopters to completely shut down. Safety, of course, very important to NASA and the U.S. military. So we'll wait just a couple of minutes here before we start seeing crew members walk off the helicopters one by one. All right, and now here we see pilot Victor Glover and mission specialist Christina Cook sitting on the edge of one of the helicopters, looking in great spirits. That familiar smile and laugh from Victor, I can see it from here. Christina, I'm sure, feeling the same way, just blocked a little bit by our camera here, but we'll see her here shortly. A photographer taking their pictures. Victor saluting folks on the flight deck. They look like they're in great spirits. Happy to be home, I'm sure. If you're sitting at home, I hope you too are wondering, what would you want to ask them if you got a chance to talk to them? Because that is what I'm thinking about. Getting the opportunity to talk to or ask questions of these 4 astronauts who just made history as the first crew to return to the moon since 1972. Oh, there we see Christina there, also smiling. Finally peering out, waving at the cameras. Hello to you too, Christina, yes. Welcome back. Welcome, welcome home. A loudspeaker announcement on the ship saying, "Welcome home, Integrity." Victor in great spirits. I can't see who he's talking to, but I kind of think that he might be talking to his other 2 crew members. Shouting from across the flight deck, congratulations to one another. And so now we see some Navy personnel walking up to the helicopter. This is again the first helicopter carrying pilot Victor Glover and mission specialist Christina Cook. Both have taken off their helmets now. Some pictures, video to catalog this historic moment. A beautiful sunset just behind them here in the Pacific Ocean. Golden hour. These pictures will be beautiful. Now we see NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman. He is on the flight deck, as well as Flight Surgeon Rick Schuring walking over to Victor and Christina first. We saw the administrator walk over to the other helicopter, which is carrying Commander Reed Weissman and Mission Specialist Jeremy Hansen. We heard from Rick earlier in the broadcast. Again, he said he's going to be out there on the flight deck to do another initial assessment of the crew, ask them how they're feeling, anything bothering them. But again, from what I'm seeing, they look like they're in great spirits and feeling pretty good for folks who just traveled 695,000 miles from Florida to the moon and now here to the Pacific Ocean. We're now seeing NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman walking across the flight deck. He had been talking to Reed and Jeremy, now approaching Victor and Christina. A hug from Victor, a hug from Christina. What a moment that we're getting to experience together. I'm sure congratulatory words. You know, we got to speak to the administrator live on this broadcast as well, and he said the kid in him right now, giddy, absolutely giddy at what we were able to accomplish today. Returning them home safely and in good spirits after a 10-day mission around the moon. And here we go. We're seeing Jeremy walking, waving across the flight deck, now on his way to the medical bay. It's a short walk, less than a minute. Again, that's why the recovery team decided to use helicopters to get them on the flight deck for that short walk to medical bay. And now on the flight deck, we see the chief of the astronaut office, Scott Tingle. Rick Schuring switching places. He's going over to the other helicopter. Big hugs from Victor, Christina.
Now, live breaking news on Arizona's Family Plus.
All right, and now here we are, Christina, making her way, looking thankful, grateful, happy to be home. You can see she's looking up again, lots of people, just a few levels up off the flight deck, welcoming her home. Scott holding the door like a gentleman, but back on his way to the other crew still on the flight deck. So still on the flight deck, Victor Glover and Reed Weissman. It looks like Victor will be the next one headed to medical bay. More hugs, more hugs. He's a hugger. Victor looking good as he walks across the flight deck. NASA Administrator applauding. Victor applauding for all the folks on the ship with him who played a role in their safe return today. Finally, just one Artemis II crew member left on the flight deck, Commander Reed Weissman. Applause from the group there on the flight deck, I'm sure, as well as on the level just above them, packed with people. Reed looking good as he takes his steps towards the medical bay. See our 4 Artemis II crew members back on the ship. Again, now they will head into medical bay, where they will be assessed by flight surgeons from both NASA as well as the Canadian Space Agency. A more in-depth assessment. When they get to medical bay, they will each have their own nurse. They will be helped out of their suits. And then again, we'll check to see that they're feeling good. Make sure it's not just adrenaline, but that they are feeling good from their long journey back from the moon. Beautiful shot of that sunset, illuminating our flight deck. All right, and now with our astronauts safely on board, I want to welcome on Artemis Recovery Director Lily Villarreal. Lily, I don't know how you must be feeling right now. Ecstatic, relieved?
So ecstatic, relieved. Of course, we still have to bring the capsule into the well deck of the ship, but this is a major milestone to have the crew here on the ship and in medbay. You know, our team has been preparing and working really hard, and I'm just so proud of them all. Everything went very well, just as planned. Our teammates in Houston, the flight control team was just amazing. We were able to have great conversations and communications about everything. And I don't know what else to say. I'm just so ecstatic. It's such a wonderful feeling to get to this point. Again, we still have to get the capsule, but this is huge for all of us in landing recovery. And I couldn't do this without my team, and of course the full support of the U.S. military. There's going to be lots of high fives when we get the capsule back in, and I'm so happy that the crew's doing well, Ryan's doing well, and thank you for for everybody watching.
Yeah, it was great to watch the crew come back to the ship with you. How were you feeling when you were seeing them looking so happy to be home and feeling really good?
The funny thing is that we had video of them from inside the Orion vehicle. They were like that from the beginning. When we opened the hatch, they were already out of their seats, having a good time, waiting for us to open the hatch. And they opened the hatch, and of course we did the first medical assessment. Everybody was doing very well, and they were just having such a great time with the medical team that was inside the capsule. I think they were all taking selfies with the phones that they have, probably talking about what they saw, and it was just smiles all around. They were having such a great time. And then we put them on the front porch when we were ready to put them on the front porch, and again you could see they were just so ecstatic to be home and talking to everybody. So we were very happy to see all of that in the control room of the LFOC.
How remarkable is that? Again, if we think about their journey, the 695,000-mile journey around the moon and back, coming back at 30 times faster than the speed of sound. I mean, how remarkable is that they are in such good spirits?
I mean, this is an amazing crew. I think you guys have seen it for the past 10 days. They're wonderful people, and we're so happy that they brought us along on that ride. And I can't wait to see all the additional videos and pictures that they have that, we'll get a hold of now that they're back on the ground. And I can't wait to hear how, a little more than what we saw on the press briefings from the crew about what they saw. It's just fantastic. Some of my favorite people around this 10 days was the science team and how excited they were. And so this is exactly how we feel in the landing recovery team when the science team went, oh my goodness, when they heard all the discussions about the moon. This is exactly how we feel now in the landing recovery team. We're so ecstatic.
Yeah.
Again, we have to recover the capsule. I want to make sure we don't forget about Orion.
Lily's all about business. She's thinking about what's next. But yeah, speaking of these 10 days, I mean, we have been along for the journey with them, live with them 24/7 for 10 days, and just really seeing the engagement that we've gotten from around the world. What do you hope people take away from this mission?
I think that's fantastic. So, my story was that I went to the Kennedy Space Center. I was born in Colombia. I was 10 years old when we moved to the United States, but when I was 7, my family took me to the visitor center, and that's when I learned about Apollo. And we went to the moon, and I learned about astronauts, and that story was what really fueled me to want to do STEM and want to be an astronaut. And I think that this Artemis program is going to do exactly what what girls, my age back then is 7, young people right now, girls and even like young men, obviously. But we want to empower people to know that you can do this, right? If you want to come and work for NASA, if I did it, they can do it. And Artemis program is just going to inspire everybody. And I'm so happy about that.
Yeah.
Like Apollo inspired me.
Thank you so much, Lily. Really appreciate you being here. As you said, still a lot of work to do. 5 to 6 more hours to recover Orion that's still out in the water. So I'll let you get back to it. But you had beautiful words to say again. We hope that this inspires people. We hope that you come and join us at NASA and accomplish great things with us in the future. Back to you, Rob.
Thank you, Megan, and safe sailing out there in the Pacific. Here in Mission Control, it is now all quiet. The team of flight controllers and all their support personnel have left the room to enjoy the aftermath of a textbook touchdown by Integrity at Splashdown in the Pacific, right on target to complete this historic flyby of the moon, the Artemis II mission. With that, we'll wrap up our coverage for the night and point you to a post-Splashdown news conference in 15 minutes at 9:35 p.m. Central Time, 10:35 p.m. Eastern Time, where managers will discuss the return of the Integrity spacecraft and the completion of the